Good afternoon, everybody. Can everybody hear me?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yes.
Welcome, welcome. I think, more people, we're gonna wait. I guess all of us more or less are here, and then some more people are gonna be joining us a little bit later. Hey, Lucinda. Hi, how are you?
Hey, Giada. Hey, Silvana.
Hola. That's great. Good. How are you guys? Good? Everything well? Okay. You're ready to start? So everybody can see me well and hear me well? Yes? Okay, I'm gonna share the screen so that I can start presenting you guys, and then we can go ahead and have the discussion with my students so that they can ask Silvana questions, or also members of the audience. Okay, so here we go. Let me just share the screen. Can everybody see it?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, great. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to ask all of you to just mute, just in case, so that there's no interference with my speaking. And that way, when people are joining in, they can hear me and see me, as everybody can see me also, right? Yes? Okay. Here we go. Okay, so welcome everybody to our presentation, Creating Awareness on Domestic Violence Through Translation, a conversation with Silvana Marconi. I'd like to welcome you on behalf of the Department of English and World Languages and the Spanish program in particular, and the Pamplin College of Arts, Humanities, and Social Sciences. So thank you all for being here on a Friday afternoon. I'm going to start with just introducing myself a little bit for those of you who don't know me. I'm an associate professor of Spanish in the Department of English and World Languages at Augusta University. I specialize in teaching all levels of Spanish, and I also teach translation and literature. That's all of those are my passions. I'm also the director of the Salamanca, Spain Study Abroad program. I am Italian, but I was actually born in Lima, Peru. So I've lived in Peru, in Venezuela, and in Italy as well. And then in the United States, I've lived in 3 states, Florida, Iowa, and Georgia. And now here I also included my email address. If any of you wants to contact me after this presentation, you're more than welcome. I am going to share this PowerPoint also in the chat section when I get a little bit, maybe when my students are talking, I'll just pop it in so that you can have it, or give you also the, I can send it to you by email, whatever you prefer as well. Okay, so now I'm going to start introducing all of our special guests, starting with our author, Silvana Marconi. Silvana, thank you so much for being here. If you can just say hello so people can see you on the screen.
Hello everybody.
Thank you. So thank you so much for being here, and thank you for sharing your story with us and allowing us to translate it into English. It was a wonderful experience, and I hope to collaborate with you more in the future. So thank you again for being here. So I'm going to say a little bit about her. So Silvana Marconi is a Uruguayan author. She was born in Montevideo in 1977. She teaches English, is married, and has 2 teenage kids. She is a former victim of domestic violence, and she is the author of the book that my students are currently translating, the process of translating, Sobreviví. It was published in 2018. She has published a second book, Mi historia de amor con un expreso de Guantánamo, and is currently working on her 3rd book about parental alienation. Okay, she likes to write about real stories, and that's also what she likes to read. Okay, so a lot of her, that's why Sobreviví is her own personal autobiographical story. Okay, and she is currently also working with 2 producers on a documentary about domestic violence. I did include a link here to the Latin America's crowdfunding in order to raise money for a post-production of the documentary. So if anybody wants to donate a little something, you can click on that link and donate, because we all want to see this documentary come to fruition. So hopefully it'll be out soon. Okay, and I think it includes Silvana's just story, but also other victims, male and female, that have had the same experience with domestic violence. So about the book. So through this book, she tells her story of survival and denounces the aggressor. So following, what's great about this book is that following in her footsteps, a lot of Uruguayan women actually built up the courage to report and denounce their aggressor as well. And they use her book as a point of reference. So that's what's very powerful about this book. She has numerous followers also on social media and has been a guest in various television and radio shows. So she keeps on creating awareness on this very important and impactful topic. And she is very open to just telling her story and sharing with everyone, everything that happened to her as well. So thank you for doing that, Silvana. Thank you so much. And to make this happen, to make this project happen, we have another special guest here that will actually publish my students' translation into English, and that is Lucinda Clark from PRA Publishing. And there she is. Say hello, Lucinda.
Hello,
Thank
everyone.
you so much to you too for making this happen, for making my students' work publishable, you know, and available for people to read for Augusta and beyond. And so thank you so much. A little bit about Lucinda. She is a poet, she is a publisher, and she is also a film producer. She is an avid supporter of the arts and founded PRA Publishing in 2002 with the mission of giving diverse voices in literature a chance to shine. So we're very thankful to her for that. True to this mission, PRA Publishing looks to publish everything from nonfiction, fiction translations like this one, and especially poetry. She is also the founder of the Poetry Matters Project, which was her proudest achievement until she actually produced her first short film with her son last year. Lucinda is a contributor of View from the Middle of the Road series and publisher of Poetry Diversified, an anthology of human experience series. She moved to Augusta in 1994. When not writing, Lucinda can be found dancing tango, which is great, or meandering around in the garden as well. She is also the new VP of Georgia Poetry Society. And as you can tell from the pictures, Lucinda and I have collaborated together numerous times already. We have done many translation projects, and we have presented in schools about the importance of reading, learning another language, translation, literature in general. So I thank you again, and I'm so happy that I get to work with you again, and I hope that we can work again in the future very soon. So thank you for being here, Lucinda. Really appreciate your help. And also she wanted me to share some events that are going on. ALTA's 45th bilingual reading series. It's happening April 26th at 5 p.m. Pacific time. So that would be 8 p.m. Eastern time. And then also the New Orleans Poetry Festival, April 23rd, which is tomorrow. And there's a link there if you are interested in joining as well. And they're all virtual events, right, Lucinda? Okay, great. Thank you so much. And then I'm going to now move on to the Italian translator. So Silvana Marconi's book has been translated into Italian as well. And it's already available in Italy. And the Italian translator is Frank Iodice. He was unfortunately not able to be here. He might join us a little later, hopefully, if he can. But he shared with me some observations that he had while translating, some changes he made to the translation while during the translation process. So I'd like to share those with you. But first, a little bit about the book. Sopravvissuta was published by Edizioni Il Foglio with an introduction by Marta Occhipinti, who is a journalist from La Repubblica. Okay, there's a little information on the bottom about the editor and the Italian newspaper as well. So two observations from Frank when he was translating. So he decided not to translate the introduction by the Uruguayan lawyer at the beginning, it's a great introduction, but it's very focused on the Uruguayan culture and the social situation in Uruguay. So he decided to contact Marta Occhipinti from La Repubblica to write something more centered on Italian culture, especially on the laws and statistics of gender and violence. So that's one of the changes he made. And then the other one was the title. So Sobreviví in Spanish is the first person past tense of sobrevivir. And in Italian, it would have been sopravvissi or sono sopravvissuta, which does not sound as good as the Spanish version. Therefore, he decided to change it to sopravvissuta, which is the participle and just sounds much better. And there's maybe less alliteration as well of too many S's too with the sono sopravvissuta. So that was his change. Those were his contributions, and hopefully he'll join us a little later so that he can actually discuss with my students as well some of the translation process as well. And then next we have, thank you so much for being here, Amy Hall, Executive Director of Safe Homes. Could you please just say hello so people can see you?
Hey, how are y'all doing? Thank you for having us today.
Oh, thank you for being here. I really appreciate that. I'm just going to say a little bit about the Domestic Violence Center, Safe Homes. They're committed to ending domestic violence through advocacy, awareness, and education. They have many, many highly specialized and comprehensive services to assist victims, and regardless of the stage they're at in their journey. And all services are completely free and they're completely anonymous as well. So it's one of the 46 state certified domestic violence centers in Georgia, and they provide services to victims throughout the East Central Georgia region of Burke, Columbia, Glasscock, Jefferson, Lincoln, McDuffie, Richmond, Taliaferro, Warren, and Wilkes counties. And they also are responsible for organizing an annual Jingle Jam 10K to raise funds for this center as well. So we thank you so much for your service and for your help to just the Augusta community and beyond. And we're very, very honored to have you here today with us. So thank you so much. Thank you. And the next one would be, she's not here at the moment, I don't think. Julie Nilker, are you here now? Not yet. She told me she was going to probably join us a little later, but I just wanted to introduce her as well. She is the Title IX's coordinator here at Augusta University. So Title IX of the Education Amendment of 1972 is a federal law that prohibits discrimination based on sex in education programs or activities that receive federal funding. So she is here, and her team is here to help faculty, students, staff, everybody at Augusta University if they feel threatened in any way, if they've been sexually harassed or they've been discriminated based on sex. This office, this team is here to help you. So they're on their website, you can find a message: Augusta University prohibits sexual misconduct in any form, including sexual harassment and discrimination based on sex. If you've been the victim of sexual assault or misconduct, we're here to help. So it's great to have this resource on campus, and we're very, very, very appreciative and thankful that this exists and makes it so that we feel safer and we feel like we can be heard. And if we're ever in trouble for anything, we can actually talk to them, and they will be able to help us. The reason why I'm also presenting all of these services that help us when it comes to domestic violence or sexual harassment of any form is because, unfortunately, Silvana, when this happened to her, it was 20 years ago, and these things really did not exist yet. It wasn't, domestic violence wasn't even a term yet or something that people would talk about. It was not the organizations that exist today did not exist at the time. So she met a lot of indifference in her life coming from either doctors or her own family. So what's great and powerful about this book is that the last chapter, she really sends that message to everybody, female and male, to, denounce, report, do something about it. Because nowadays there's actually organizations and things that can help you out. And so I included here a quote, a very powerful quote, one of the many, towards the end of the book, just to share with you, to see the message, so that you understand the message of this book and how important it is. And I included all versions of it, the original in Spanish, the translation by Frank Giodice in Italian, and then the translation of my students in English. So I'm going to read you the quote real quick, and then we can continue with our students and let Silvana and my students and Lucinda and everybody else talk. So, okay, so here it goes. Let me see if I can see it, because it's kind of blocked. Let me do this so I can read it better. There you go. Okay, for just this one part. Denuncia y defiende tu derecho a la vida. Denuncia y sostén tu sobrevivencia. Y si aún así no te sientes fuerte para denunciarlo, puedas acudir a mí sin duda. Pero por favor, la vida es sagrada. Solo Dios o la divinidad en que creas puede llevarnos cuando nos llegue la hora. no un cobarde que abusa de nosotras. Denuncia por todas las mujeres que han sido asesinadas, por todas las mujeres que hemos resucitado y por ti misma, porque todas estamos in ti. The Italian. Denuncia e difendi il tuo diritto alla vita. Denuncia e preserva la tua sopravvivenza. E se non ti senti ancora forte per farlo, io sono qui per te. Ma per favore, la vita è sacra. Solo Dio o la divinità in cui credi ci può venire a prendere quando arriva l'ora. Non un codardo che abusa di noi. Denuncia per tutte le donne che sono state assassinate, per tutte le donne salvate dalla morte e per te stessa, perché tutte siamo in te. And English, denounce and defend your right to live. Denounce and support your survival. And if you still do not feel strong enough to denounce it, do not hesitate to reach out to me. But please, life is sacred. Only God or the divinity you believe in can take us when the time comes, not a coward who abuses us. Denounce. Do it for all the women who have been murdered, for all the women we have resurrected, and for yourself, as we are all a part of you. It gives me chills every time. So gracias, Silvana, for this wonderful piece. And for my students for translating it into English, and for Frankie Odisha translating it into Italian. So last but not least, here are my students. I'd like to introduce my students here from Spanish 4600, Introduction to Spanish English Translation. Not all of them could be here today, unfortunately, because this class is online and it's asynchronous. So usually we don't have a fixed time or day that we meet. So it was hard to get everybody, in at the same time, but everybody participated. So there are members that are here of my class. They also have the other ones that couldn't be here shared their comments and questions with the ones that are here, so they can actually do ask the questions for them. So if you're here, please, when I call your name, just say hello so people can see you. So it's Sasha Bent. Is she here?
Hello.
Okay, there she is. Sasha Bent is here. Stephen Boyd. Is he here?
Oh, hello, good afternoon.
Okay, there he is. Hi, Stephen. Stephanie Castillo.
Hola, ¿cómo están?
Bien, gracias. ¿Cómo estás? Okay, Julio Chavez.
Hey, everyone.
There he is. Emily Kirby. I think she can't be here, I believe. I don't think she's here. Okay, let's continue. Sruthi Medikerla.
Hola.
Ahí estás. Hola. Carrigan Moody. I don't think she's here. Francesca Santander. Don't think she's here. Tanya.
Hello.
Oh, she's there. Francesca, is that you?
Yes.
Hola, Francesca. Okay. Tanya Satisabal. Not here. Holly Swanson.
Hola.
Okay, she's here. Nathan Urioste.
Hello.
Okay, there you are. So welcome. Thank you all. I'd like to thank you as your professor for doing this. They are wonderful students. They've worked so hard on this translation. They put their heart and soul into it. So what I want to do now is just actually let them present some of the comments that they had of like challenges they had during the translation process. And then if they have questions for Silvana, they can go ahead and ask the questions. Anybody who wants to start, you're more than welcome to start. I just want to show a few things about the translation project and how they worked together. They worked together in groups and they translated certain chapters. They were assigned certain chapters. They did read the entire book first, and then they were assigned chapters to translate. And once they finished the translation, the first version was corrected by their peers. So I gave another group's translation. And then everything was corrected by myself. And then they are now currently incorporating all the corrections and all the comments. And I believe all of them are done. And I will revise them one more time and then send them out to Lucinda for her to revise. Lucinda has also revised the first version with the corrections as well. And then she will continue just looking at the format and everything, just the last little touches before it gets published. So this was a little bit of the translation project and just an image of one of the pages where all of the comments from the students and from myself were incorporated, the corrections. We worked with Word online, track changes, etc. So I just wanted to show you an example of what they did. And then now I'd like to just leave the podium for my students. Whoever wants to start, don't make me call on you, just volunteer, go for it. Okay, Holly, you can start. I'm gonna mute myself so that there's no interference.
Okay. Alrighty. Hello, I'm Holly. I'm one of the students. Thank you, Mrs. Silvan. Sorry, I'm pronouncing that incorrect.
Silvana.
Silvana,
Silvana.
gracias por estar aquí. Thank you for being here. This is very exciting. I think we're all excited to finally get to meet the author of this project that we've been working on for a couple of weeks now, and it was very enjoyable. It was challenging for all of us, I know, but I feel like we've learned a lot throughout this whole project. But I wanted to share a little bit about one little thing that I found difficult while I was translating, and then just how I was able to find the translation and how we figured it out as a team. And then I have a question for you as well once I'm done with that. So I did face one challenge, and I have the quote with me right now, about a quote as I was reading it. I think it's on page 39 actually. There was this one little quote that says, "El calor que hace en la casa al rayo del sol anda para ella." So that was one of the quotes from the original, the Spanish version. And I was assigned to that page to translate it. And what we were learning throughout the class, one of the things that's important whenever you're translating is to remember that overall, you don't want to lose the true meaning of the phrase or whatever the thing is that you're translating. So for me, as a very beginner translator, this is the first project I've ever done, anything translating related. I found it difficult for me to break away from the word for word translation. So this was I'm going to share with everybody what my first translation turned out to be. It makes absolutely no sense because I was trying to do it word for word. And I said, "Where it's hot and where the sun beams down, go over there." That was my very first translation. Obviously it makes no sense. So after that, we sent it over to another group, and they were doing reviews and putting comments on our original translations. And somebody else had put something similar to what I had put. Somebody else put, the heat is what you make of it, and the house is where the sun's rays are, stand over there. So as you can see, all of us, we were all in the beginning, because this was very new for everybody. We were all we all kind of found it a little bit difficult to break away from word for word translation, and we were losing the true meaning of what the phrase meant. So that's something that we had learned throughout the class before this project was, sometimes you're given something and you might be given the job to translate it, and it might look different whenever you finally translate it to another language, but the ultimate goal is not to lose the true meaning of what the phrase is. So couple groups had gone through with that phrase as well. I think we all kind of struggle with the phrase just a little bit because it's a little bit different in English. But thankfully, at some point, Dr. Biasetti added a comment, and she kind of gave more context surrounding the phrase. And just for people that haven't read the book yet, in the paragraph, Silvana had mentioned that the abuser, I think is what we called him in the book at some point, he kind of got upset whenever she would leave the house and that kind of thing. And so we had to put all of that context together to make sense of what the phrase meant. And so finally, at the very, very end, we got to a really good translation. We all reached it, and we came out with, "It's so hot and the house is right where the sun is blazing, go over there." So I just kind of wanted to share a little bit of a struggle that we all kind of had in the beginning. We all kind of commented trying to figure out what would work best. And then in the end, we had to remember that it wasn't so much as like the specific word for word that we were going after, what we were trying to reach. But in the end, we just want to make sure that that true meaning wasn't lost in the translation. So that was something that I actually enjoyed. I enjoyed the whole process of learning from that. So I feel like I've become a better translator afterwards. And now I have a question for you. When did you realize that you had a passion for writing?
Okay, you talked a lot. Let me see
okay.
if I understand.
Sure. Sure.
Is your question that you didn't understand the phrase that que la casa estaba al rayo del sol? Was that your question?
Well, that was a phrase that I didn't understand at first when I read it. Because I think when we say things like that, like, oh, it's so hot outside, a lot of times that specific phrase, al rayo del sol no existe, creo, en inglés. Para describir algo que hace mucha calor. When something's really hot, we really don't say it's al rayo del sol. It was a little bit different in between the two languages, so that's what I had struggled with. I was trying to translate word after word to make it as close to the original, but in doing so, I lost the original meaning of the entire phrase. But after a while, we all figured out what the translation should have been in the end.
The real sense of that sentence is that I remember exactly the moment. I was with him in his parents' house, and it was summer. It was, I don't know, like 40 degrees, and the house in the garden there was no tree, right? So the house was under the sun, a rayo del sol. So he said to me, go to the house because the house is no sé cómo, I don't know how to say it in English. Go to the house because Giada, help me. Te lo digo en español, Giada. Él me dijo, anda a la casa porque la casa es de rayo del sol y la casa tiene calor. Era eso.
Yeah,
so basically, what I
yeah,
wanted to point,
yeah.
What? Sorry?
No, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. What I wanted to show, to say, to express is that he was more worried about the house being hot than anything else. And what could there was nothing I could do for the house not to be in the sun. There was nothing. Nothing was going to happen to the house if the house was in the sun, no? But that is what I wanted to point. That was the point that I wanted to show. Do you understand?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Exactly, which then we fixed, yeah, with the new translation, because basically it was a phrase. It's a very impactful phrase because it shows how he was trying to control you so much that he wants you to go back home. He doesn't want you to be out there. And the possessiveness, shows his possessive behavior towards you. And so we wanted to give that more emphasis of the house, which is also kind of it doesn't make any sense because, yes, like you said, what are you going to do? Like, you can't make the house. What are you going to do? Not be in the sun? But it was just a difficult phrase because of the way it was stated in Spanish, which doesn't really, there's no direct translation in English. So we worked, but I think her question, ella tenía otra pregunta, que ¿cuándo descubriste tu pasión por la escritura?
Yes. Okay. When I wrote Sobreviví, I am not going to say that I enjoyed it because I cried a lot. And I'm sorry, but
Está bien, Silvana. Si quieres, pasamos a otra pregunta. Sí, ok. Bueno, Steven, puedes hacer tu comentario y luego pasamos a otra pregunta. Gracias, Steven.
Claro que sí. No, can everybody hear me okay? Okay, perfect. So, Silvana, thank you for the opportunity again. Muchísimas gracias por la oportunidad. Es un placer de conocer a usted. Mi pregunta, so I have a comment. I will say the comment in English for the, for everybody, and then I can also repeat it in Spanish. So similar to what Holly said, as language learners, one of the biggest challenges for us, in translation is this colloquial speech, is this, like speech that's normal for students, for people to talk on a regular day, but when you translate it into another language, it doesn't translate exactly. This project, had these cultural pieces, cultural challenges, and that for me also was, most difficult to overcome. Dije como estudiante de idiomas, uno de los problemas más grandes para nosotros fue la traducción del discurso coloquial. Este proyecto incluyó esos problemas problemas culturales, de palabras culturales, y también sociológicos, que resultaran en problemas que son difíciles de superar. So that was our challenge. My question for Ms. Marconi is that, so in the United States, so here in the United States, domestic violence, it tends to be negatively correlated with socioeconomic class, meaning, poor men generally typically tend to be abusers, which is different than your experience. So my question is, do you feel that wealth and violence are connected globally? Is there a connection between wealth and violence? Dije que aquí en los Estados Unidos existe una correlación negativa entre violencia doméstica y la clase socioeconómica. Generalmente los abusadores son hombres que viven en pobreza, y esto es diferente que a su propia experiencia. ¿Cree usted que existe una conexión global entre la violencia y la riqueza?
Hola, Steven. Hello, Steven. What I understood is that there in the United States, the domestic violence is made by men who have a lot of money, or I understand.
Que no, hombres que no tienen dinero, no vienen de riqueza. La mayoría de abusadores no tienen dinero, vienen de pobreza. Pero esto fue diferente que la experiencia de usted, ¿no?
Yes. Should I speak in Spanish or English, Giada?
Como prefieres, o Steven también puede traducir después, si prefieres decirlo en español.
Ok, no digo en español, si puedes traducir mejor. No, acá en Uruguay, en Uruguay creo que en América Latina en general, la violencia, no sé si en general en América Latina, pero acá en Uruguay específicamente la violencia doméstica, no importa, o sea, si tienes mucha plata, también hay violencia doméstica en toda la clase social, en todas las edades. Mirá, hace un par de años en el informativo dijeron que una pareja de ella 75 y él 80 años, él la mató a ella. O sea, no hay edad, no hay dinero, no, o sea, es general. Es una pandemia acá, es impresionante. ¿Era esa la pregunta?
Sí, gracias. Muchísimas gracias. So what I understood is that, that this is a pandemic of a sociological pandemic, right? So that it doesn't matter the amount of money that you have, right? That it's more of the pandemic of violence that occurs across across Latino America. En mi opinión, ocurre en todo el mundo así, ¿no?
Sí, it happens everywhere, but in Uruguay, she was saying that Uruguay has like, it's all ages and all
ages,
yes. So it doesn't discriminate, let's put it that way, for lack of a better term. But and she was saying that a couple of years ago, she read that actually there was an article saying that it was I think an 80-year-old man that killed his wife who was 75. So it doesn't have any age either. So it can happen anytime and any socioeconomic level. So it is really, like she said, and like you said, Stephen, a pandemic of this kind, which is actually unfortunate, because after the actual COVID-19 pandemic, numbers have skyrocketed as far as domestic violence too. It has increased because of the lockdown, because of partners being forced to be in the house 24 hours. And so the numbers of domestic violence cases have actually increased in the past couple of years. But thank you for that question. And did anybody else have another comment or question? Okay, Suruthi? Yes, that's you. Okay, you can go ahead.
Sí, claro. Quiero empezar en español para que señora Silvana puede incluir sus opiniones. Primero quiero decirle gracias por compartir su experiencia. Sé que hacer eso necesita mucha fuerza. Pienso que podemos aprender mucho en general, pero específicamente sobre la fuerza emocional que este tiene. Ojalá que al compartir con nosotros, otras personas se sientan empoderados a hablar y compartir sus experiencias también. Quiero otro comentario, que durante el proceso de traducción tuvimos algunos retos, en particular en Nacimos Juntos. Tuvimos que usar transposición y omisión muchas veces para traducir sus etapas primeras después de irse de la casa de Ricardo. Fue difícil traducir eso porque la estructura gramática no se convierte de la misma manera del español al inglés. Los consejos de mis compañeros de clase y también ayudaron mucho. También las sugerencias de profesora Biasetti ayudaron mucho. Pero mi grupo no puede hablar ahora, pero quiero hablar en español just to explain this last bit. So first of all, I want to thank you for sharing your experience. I know doing it requires a lot of strength. I believe we can learn a lot from the book, especially the emotional strength that you have. I hope that when sharing your experience with us, you empower others to speak up and share their stories. And the second comment, during the translation process, we had a couple of challenges, particularly in the section titled We Were Born Together, when we had to learn to use transposition and omission, two translation techniques we learned in class many times to translate the different stages Silvana went through after leaving Ricardo's home. It was hard to translate because the grammatical structure doesn't translate the same way from English into Spanish or Spanish to English. But my classmates' suggestions and Dr. Biasetti's suggestions helped a lot, especially because I personally have no translation experience. This is my first time taking a class like this. I've taken Spanish many times over the years, but nothing as big and complex as this kind of project. So I'm really glad to participate. Y tengo algunas preguntas de mis miembros del grupo. Primero es que Silvana, su historia está llena de emociones que obviamente fueron difíciles para usted. ¿Cómo trabajó usted para superar todas esas emociones? ¿Y hay estrategias que utilizó?
Te respondo en español, ¿tá? ¿Cómo trabajé? No, nunca lo trabajé. Mírame cómo estoy, como estuve recién, ¿viste? En el único momento que vi psicóloga fue para ayudarme a escribir el libro, porque yo me acordaba de las piñas, de los golpes, de todo eso, pero no me acordaba qué pasaba antes y qué pasaba después. Tenía solamente grabado ese momento de los golpes, ¿viste? Entonces recurrí a una psicóloga que se dedica a regresiones y ella me ayudó, y la profesora de literatura también me ayudó a ir más allá de esos poquitos recuerdos, porque la psicóloga me decía que el cerebro tiende a bloquear los momentos feos para que uno pueda seguir adelante. Y la verdad que después yo bloqueé totalmente. Yo una vez que terminó eso, que me separé, me fui a vivir a la casa de mis padres, nunca más me acordé de eso. Entonces, después sí que se empezó a hablar de vuelta de la violencia doméstica, y bueno, que yo empecé a recordar todo, sé que me hizo un clic la cabeza, empecé a recordar todo, y bueno, fue ahí que decidí escribir Sobreviví, y quiero contestarle a Holly, porque me puse a llorar como una boba, no pude contestarle nada. Creo que me preguntó que si no me acuerdo cuál fue la pregunta de Holly, no me acuerdo, si me gustaba escribir, que me gustaba escribir,
Cuando
¿no? Ya,
descubriste tu pasión, perdón, Holly, te interrumpí a ti.
¿eso
Sí,
fue?
también, o
Hola.
como para expresarse con de todo que tú has, perdón, hablo también francés, así que de vez en cuando me salen palabras en francés. Pero cuando decidiste expresarse o para mostrar a todo el mundo lo que usted ha sufrido, digamos, para la escritura en tu mente o en su mente, como, o cuando descubrió esta manera de expresarse o para mostrar a todo el mundo, cuando una pasión, ¿cómo se dice? Un amor para la escritura de antes,
Sí.
demás, en el pasado de su vida o cuando.
Siempre me gustó escribir, en la escuela, en el liceo, siempre. Escribía poemas cuando era chica, cuando era más chica escribía poemas, pero yo siempre fui de leer historias reales, siempre. Entonces, cuando empecé a escribir Sobreviví, hasta que lo terminé, digo, no puedo quedarme solamente con esto porque me encantó el proceso de escribirlo. Aparte, que la gente, aparte que hay tantas historias en el mundo que superan la ficción, ¿no? Que es impresionante las cosas que nos pasan alrededor. Entonces, y había muchas historias que merecían estar plasmadas. Entonces, digo, terminé con Sobreviví y tengo que seguir escribiendo porque me encantó el proceso, me encantó, o sea, siempre me gustó escribir. Y ahora más todavía, porque es como que sacás todo, que lo volcás. Es que escribir Sobreviví fue, ¿cómo se dice? Ni siquiera en español sé cómo se dice. Fue volcar todo lo que no pude expresar cuando me pasó, fue volcarlo en ese libro. Fue volcarlo ahí y me encantó el proceso. Entonces, seguí escribiendo por eso, porque me encanta el proceso de la escritura, de volcar los sentimientos, de expresarlos en palabras, en hojas, y que llegue a formato de libro y que la gente lo pueda leer.
Muy
Muchas
bien,
gracias.
gracias. Does anybody, I can translate everything in English, or does anybody else want to do it? One of my students want to do it, or I'll do it. But he's hiding. I can do this. It's quite long, so I can translate everything. So one of the first questions, I think, Sruti, can you just repeat your question in English, and then
Sí,
I
claro.
will translate.
Yeah, for sure. So the first question was, your story is full of emotions that were obviously very difficult for you. How did you manage to overcome them? And what strategies did you use?
So this is a translation of what Silvana just said in Spanish. So she says that actually she hasn't worked on it. And as you can tell, like she started crying. It's still something very raw, very emotional for her. But, you know, she received help from a psychologist who told her that usually the mind of us human beings, we block trauma. We have a tendency to block it out and not remember anything. And so when she actually managed to leave the house and leave her aggressor and go live with her parents, that's the moment where she just forgot about everything. She never talked about it. She never thought of it. And so she blocked it out. And then when then she decided to start writing this book is when everything came back out. And so every time, she was saying earlier that every time as she was writing and every time she thinks back about it, it's very emotional and starts crying. And throughout the process of writing, she was crying. So it's something that never really heals. It stays with you. But I think she used this in order to help other people, to tell her story and inspire other people to do something about the situation. So, and then Holly, her question was, when did Silvana discover her passion for writing? And Silvana answered that she discovered it, well, when she was little, she used to write poetry a lot. So she always had some passion for writing, but she never really wrote anything until Sobreviví and actually got that published. And that was her first time writing a narrative. And she enjoyed it so much, the process of writing, and she's always loved writing. So she continued, and she realized that she had a passion for real stories, that everything that happens around us, so many things that need to be heard that sometimes are not heard. So she decided to take on the mission to write about these real stories. And so now she's continuing that passion, and she's continuing to write things that have either happened to her or to others and need to be heard. And that is basically the gist of it. I might have missed a few things, but thank you, Holly, and thank you, Zruti, for your questions. Those were great. Does anybody else want to, I can open it up to anybody in the audience as well. Anybody else want to? Sasha has raised her hand. Sasha, if you want to answer or ask your question. There she is.
Hola. Hola,
Hola.
Silvana. Quiero decir gracias por estar aquí y por la oportunidad. And one of the parts that I had a hard time while translating was at the end of the section titled Una casita para la familia feliz. And I have the quote with me. So it said, también opté por cerámica verde con detalles en blanco, al igual que las cortinas de los grandes ventanales de un jardín de invierno que sería encantador. So it's hard for me now to like remember all the reasons why it was hard for me to translate this part, but I know that I thought you were trying to say that a winter garden like would have been lovely there, or maybe that the window gave you a view of a garden and that was currently winter. And so I was trying to imagine like you entering the house or like the layout of the house, and I wasn't able to make sense of it until I realized it was just a metaphor. It was hard for me to make that connection between Spanish and English. But it was easy to see the imagery after that. And in the end, I translated it to, I also opted for green ceramics with white details, as well as curtains over the large windows resembling those of a lovely winter garden. So I hope that was translated correctly. And yeah, I also have a live question for you. The part that I was assigned for in the translation of your book, we had the very beginning part, and you talked about how your life was today, and you mentioned that you have 4 dogs. So I wanted to ask you like what their names were, and I also wanted to ask what your favorite pastime activity is right now.
Okay, at that time when I wrote Sobreviví, I had 4 dogs. Two of them died. Yes, one of them was salchicha. I don't know how you say dog salchicha. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, sausage.
Sausage?
Huh?
The dog salchicha.
Like the salchichas, like hot dogs, so it's those like long dogs.
Oh, a wiener dog?
Uh-huh.
Yes, I had at that time, no, I had this dog that died. He died drowned in my pool.
Oh.
Yes, yes. And well, I had a Grand Danés, a big dog, also died. This dog died 2 months ago, I think. And now I have 1, 2, 3. I have 3 dogs and a cat. And what was the other question?
What your favorite?
What? Sorry?
Your favorite pastime activity like now?
Doing gym, going to the gym.
The gym?
Yes.
Oh, the gym. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Doing spinning, and I don't know how you say spinning the bicycle.
Cycling.
Spinning. Cycling
Yes.
or spinning, yeah.
And weightlifting and all that.
Okay. Thank you.
Muy bien, gracias, Sasha. Thank you. Anybody else have any other questions, or does anybody have a questions for my students? You know, or for Lucinda? Oh, let's see, Holly is raising her hand.
Tengo una pregunta, otra pregunta para Silvana.
Ay, Holly me hace llorar.
Oh, perdón. Eso es una pregunta de uno de mis miembros del mi equipo que no podía estar aquí con nosotros. pero es en español, ¿cree usted que su libro ha ayudado a otras víctimas para hablar de su abuso? And in English, I asked her, do you believe that your book has helped other victims be able to speak about their abuse?
Yo creo que sí, porque vos sabés que yo ahora estoy con el tema de hacer un documental con ex víctimas de violencia doméstica, y todas quieren hablar, todas quieren dar su testimonio, así que yo pienso que sí, que las he apuntalado un poquito a hablarlo.
Gracias.
De nada.
I can translate. Do you want to translate, Holly, or you want me to do it? I'll do it. Okay, so she was saying that yes, that she believes that it has helped other people share their stories, and she's working on a documentary right now, and a lot of people want to talk about their experience, and it's both male and female, so men and women that share their stories. And so, yes, I think she believes that her book has really opened up also, or has inspired people to share their stories as well. And that there's more of that happening now also. And then anybody else want to, another question? I have here a comment. Let me just read the comment from Amy Hall from Safe Homes. Unfortunately, she had to leave because she had another meeting, but she says, Silvana, I appreciate you sharing your story with everyone. I know it takes a lot of courage. And then she was referring to me. I have to excuse myself to leave out of town. However, if any of the students have any questions about Safe Homes and the services we provide, please send me the questions. I will be happy to get the answers for them. Lastly, we can provide DV training to the students, and thank you. So keep that in mind for my students. I know that there were a couple of questions for Safe Homes. So I have them, so I can send them over to her, and then she'll respond to them, and then I can send them over to you guys. So thank you for that. And anybody else has a question? I think Lucinda, were you?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I would like to start with a brief statement and then my question. First of all, Giada, you and your students are to be applauded for taking on such a tough topic. There's so many issues that, and there's so many layers and levels of secrecy and shame just based on the topic that you had to translate. The important thing, because I've worked with other translators and I've published other works of translation, is to take, for the students to take away is the understanding that there is a great deal of trust an author and translators develop during this process. And what you all are doing here today is very impressive, because you translated and now you get to ask your questions. The one thing I want to leave with the students is that translation, especially literary, is not literal. This is very important. Based on your questions, I think that because the first time you're thinking that you have to translate it word for word, but you're learning that you don't. And this is where publishers and editors come in. A literary translation is an adaptation of the original work. So if you keep that in mind, and that when Frank did his translation in Italian, he showed that by removing the introduction because it would not be relevant to Italians. And so like what we would probably do is maybe get Amy to write an introduction that would make the English translation more relevant. This is a thought as the publisher. So the question I have for your students, because they've gone through the whole process, they've now spoken to the author, is have you given any thought to what the cover should look like?
Anybody? I know somebody does. Wait,
Right.
somebody raised their hand. Stephen, there you go. Go ahead, Stephen.
Oh, sorry, I raised my hand, then I have technical difficulties. So a visual representation of this type of story, in my opinion, is definitely challenging. It's definitely something not easy to come by, right? You know, how do you display something terrible, you know, and make it something appealing, right? For Silvana, Silvana, yo dije que es muy difícil que para presentar este tipo de cosas en una manera que es atractiva, ¿no? Es muy difícil. You know, I guess we have to think about, and I don't have an answer. No tengo respuesta. So I'm sorry to not have an answer. But I will say, you know, I think a direction maybe would be to think about something that is maybe ugly on the outside, but then pretty on the inside. You know, so that's not a real answer, but that's, you know, maybe a direction. Yo dije que tal vez una idea para la pintura de esto es algo que afuera es algo feo, pero adentro es bonito. And maybe, you know, that's a direction that we can go to you know, appropriately describe the cover. So that's my thought.
Thank you.
Muy bien, Stephen, gracias, thank you. Anybody else have ideas or anything for the cover? Any image that maybe you saw during your lifetime that was impactful, that could be representative of Silvana's story? Anything of that sort, and anybody can participate. Even I want to thank also, I have students from 1001 and 2002 here. My students are actually attending this as well, so it's open to everybody. If anybody can think, I know that the students in 1001 and 2002 have not read the book, but you know, maybe after this presentation they might have thought of something that could represent the cover for a book. So it's open to everybody, anybody who has any ideas. I know Lucinda and I were discussing that and trying to figure out what the best image would be for this book. You know, we kind of have to think about everything when you're doing translation. So anybody else? Anybody else want
to? Does Silvana have an idea?
Silvana might have an idea.
No, I don't.
Actually,
Okay.
Crystal Hubbard, thank you for sharing that. The Rising Phoenix would be maybe an image. That would be cool. That would be good too. So
yeah, there's a film out titled Phoenix Rising that deals with domestic violence. Please, I do not suggest that your students watch it. It is extremely violent, but good call. Thank you.
Good call. Yes, thank you, Crystal. Thank you. And then even Stephen's suggestion, you know, something that is like scary on the outside, but then beautiful on the inside. So
yes.
that's also something to keep in mind. And anybody else has Sruthi, you raised your hand. Yes, go ahead.
So a couple of months ago, I watched this video of a Japanese potter, or either Chinese or Japanese, I can't remember. The concept was when a bowl is broken, like a ceramic bowl, what they would do is they would fill in the cracks with glue and paint it with gold. So essentially it was highlighting all of the flaws, all of the cracks in the bowl, and it looks more beautiful as a result. So I just kind of thought of that as like taking what's broken, fixing it, and making that what's beautiful about this beautiful artifact was kind of what I thought of.
That is beautiful. Yes, I like that too. Yes, all of these ideas are excellent. That specific bowl, cracked bowl that was put together again and made beautiful. That is, yeah, that's great. Which is also kind of in the lines of what Stephen was saying as well. So that's great. So we've got some ideas, Lucinda. We can work with that. That's good. Anything else anybody wants to share? Any questions? If Silvana, si tú tienes preguntas para mis estudiantes o para mí, cualquier cosa. Anybody else have questions or comments? We can wrap it up.
I have a question for your
Yes.
students.
Mhm.
I would like to know if they ever got contact with domestic violence, or my story is the first story that they really know.
Yeah, basically if they've heard or they know anybody that has gone through what you've been through, or if that your story was the first one they ever read about domestic violence. I don't know who wants to answer.
I've been in close contact with a family. We used to have like a family friend who dealt with domestic violence, and we were kind of heavily involved because they would come over and stay with us when anything happened, or we would like try to protect them from all of those kind of things. So yes, I've been in contact with it before.
Thank you for sharing that, Sasha. And then I also have someone on the chat, again, Crystal, saying that she knows of someone who has, yes, but personally, no, she has had no experience with that. Anybody? Stephen, I think you raised your hand. And then Sruthi, I don't know if your hand was up from before or if you also raised your hand. But Stephen, go ahead.
So I was just gonna, my grandmother, grew up, I mean, her marriage was a marriage complete of domestic violence. And it's something to this day that she does not talk about. Yo dije que mi abuela viví toda su vida en una vida de violencia doméstica, y hasta hoy día no hablan de ninguna cosa de esto. I think that it's very prevalent everywhere. I think that this is something that happens, occurs regularly, but we don't talk about it enough. It's not something that's brought to the forefront on a daily basis. So thank you for telling your story, Silvana, and giving us the opportunity to be a part of your story. Yo digo, gracias por la oportunidad. Yo creo que esto es algo que no bastante hablamos, no que la mayoría del mundo no habla de esto, yo estoy contento de ser parte de este cuento. Thank you.
Muy bien, gracias, Stephen. Thank you. And then I think Stephanie, you have your hand is up.
Yes. I don't know anyone personally, but I'm in a sorority here on campus that actually teams up with our Safe Home, so our domestic shelter here in Augusta, and we raise like lots of money for them. And I know we work a lot with Title IX and sexual assault awareness too, because that's this month right now, Sexual Assault Awareness Month right now, so we're working with that. And I know tomorrow we have a run a mile in their shoes, just raising money, and we're splitting that up to donate to Safe Homes and RAIN that we partner up with. So not personally do I know them, but I know well of it here in Augusta, like our resources we have on campus and off campus kind of thing.
Excellent, Stephanie, thank you so much. And thank you for being involved in all that and helping out as much as you can with that. It's a very important topic to talk about and to raise money for and share, and know that there's people out there who care and who are able to help. The hardest thing, and Silvana knows this very well, is just to make that first step. And what I wanted to say to Silvana is, again, thank you so much for sharing your story with us and for sharing such an emotional period of your life, that, trauma, and for you to be able to do it and like interview and talk about it over and over again. And we really appreciate, because you really are helping in so many ways. And so again, thank you for being here today and answering all the questions my students had, and for just giving us the opportunity and the chance to create more awareness in another language as well. So, and hopefully, I hope that this can be translated into other languages, in French, Chinese, Arabic. We have those, German, we have all those languages here at Augusta University. So if we can, we can continue with this project and continue spreading the the word. And I'm glad that in your life you had someone who turned out to help you out, turned out to be helpful. And it was a male cop, actually, a man, that a police officer that helped you out, helped you get out of that situation. So even though she was confronted with a lot of indifference, she made it out alive and she survived. So we're happy you could be here and you survived that experience. And again, thank you, Lucinda, also for giving us that opportunity to publish this in English. Thank you to my students for being wonderful, wonderful students, for doing such a wonderful job, putting your heart and soul into this. And then also I have here a list of people I want to thank. So Silvana Marconi, already thank you. Lucinda, again, thank you. PRA Publishing, Frank Iodice as well from Articoli Liberi for his translation in Italian and his observations and the changes he made in the translation process, etc. And Amy Hall from Safe Homes, Julie Noker from Augusta University's Title IX coordinator, and then Dr. Sarita Williams, who is the chair of the Department of English and World Languages, Dean Kim Davis, Dean of the Pamplin College of Arts, Humanities, and Social Sciences. Both of them were actually here earlier, and they had to leave because there's another faculty, there's a departmental meeting, and then there's other events going on today, but they were here. And then the Women's and Gender Studies program at Augusta University also. And then all of my students, again, thank you so much. A round of applause to all of you for the awesome work, for also, participating during this presentation, getting out of your comfort zone. I know it can be a little nerve-wracking. So you all did an excellent job. And thank you so much, everybody. Does anybody have any questions for me or anything like that? I can share real quickly on the chat. Let me see. We have some comments I can read out here. Oh, Julie, thank you. Oh, you're here. Julie, thank you so much for I didn't notice when you came in. Thank you for joining us. And thank you for the resources. So Julie's sharing the AU resources, support and training. So please reach out to Title IX office, and there's a number and a link there for all of you. And then Francesca Santander, who's a student of mine, has a message for Silvana. Muchas gracias, Silvana, por permitir que nosotros podamos traducir su experiencia. Eres muy valiente y la verdad es que ayuda a muchas personas a hablar sobre sus experiencias y decir cómo ellos salieron de esas situaciones. He aprendido mucho a través de su experiencia. So, and then, y hay otros comentarios ahí, Silvana, si quieres leerlos para ti también.
Estoy leyendo, sí.
Ok, perfecto. Entonces, bueno, thank you so much. Anybody else has a question or anything like that? Let me see if I can share this on the chat. Let me quickly try. Let me unshare that. Or did I unshare my screen? It's unshared, right? Or no, it's still sharing. Hold on, there you go. Okay. Let me see. I'm used to using Microsoft Teams to put stuff, so I'm not sure if I can actually share. Oh, there it is. I can share links. My computer. Give me 1 second and I can share this PowerPoint with everybody so that you all have all of the links and everything. I think it's uploading. Okay, can everybody see it? What I just shared in the chat?
Yes, we can.
Yes? Okay. That's the PowerPoint. And then if anybody else needs it, you can always email me and I'll email it to you. I'll email a copy for you. Again, thank you very much. Si ya no tenemos preguntas ni comentarios, ¿todo bien? All good? Gracias a todos. Thank you all for being here and for sharing your thoughts and for just being here on a Friday afternoon. If nobody else, thank you to my students from 1001 and 2002 also for being here. So that's great. And I can see you all. I have a list here of participants. So again, anybody else? Silvana, gracias. Un abrazo.
De nada, y gracias a ustedes, y perdón por haber llorado, pero yo pensé que lo había superado
No,
eso,
por
pero
favor,
no.
no pidas
Sigue,
perdón.
sigue.
No, es que eso es, bueno, claro, es que eso pasa porque el tema es lo que es, ¿no? Muy emocional. Así que no te preocupes, así eso puedes mostrar lo que en realidad sientes y eso es lo importante, ¿no? Mostrar lo que uno siente, ¿no? Y hablar de eso para que ayude a otras y para ayudarte a ti misma también.
Hace 20 años que pasó y lloro como si se
Sí.
hubiese pasado la semana pasada. Es
Sí, porque eso
horrible.
nunca se olvida, ¿no? Como dijiste tú,
Sí, no,
pero,
nunca.
o sea,
Quedan
yo cuando,
cicatrices.
sí, leía tu libro tenía escalofríos, yo, o sea, hasta desde el comienzo hasta el final, escalofríos por
Sí.
porque es que entiendes, ¿no? El dolor, ¿no? Que sentiste en ese momento y todo el abuso y todo eso es muy impactante. Es breve, pero muy impactante.
Y vivo a media cuadra de él, ¿no? Lo tengo a
Sí,
media cuadra.
también. Eso, y entonces lo tienes, pero lo ves, aún lo ves de
Nunca.
vez en cuando.
Gracias a Dios nunca lo veo, nunca. Me lo cruzo una vez al año, cuando nos cruzamos es como que pasa aire. No,
Sí,
como que no nos
si no
conocemos nunca.
existiera, mejor,
Exacto.
sí. Ajá,
Sí.
mejor ni mirarlo.
No,
Muy
no.
bien, bueno, pero ojalá que, bueno, con el tiempo ya todo se mejore, porque sanar, claro, eso siempre va a estar allí, pero por lo menos lo que
Sí,
estás
yo
haciendo
pensé que
ahora.
estaba segura que no iba a llorar, porque digo, fui a un programa de televisión hace, no sé, en febrero creo que fui, y no lloré. Digo, ya está, no lloro más. Pero no, lloré
Pero
contigo.
es que a veces, y Holly, pobrecita, dijo, la hice llorar.
Ay, sí, pobre Holly.
No, está bien, pero es que no, eso lo hace más real, o sea, lo hace más como que eso es lo que pasó.
Sí,
Somos
sí,
seres humanos y, o sea, yo también, o sea, yo leyendo tu historia, o sea, me salieron lágrimas en los ojos también, pero eso es lo que hace la literatura muchas veces y cuando son historias
claro,
reales, autobiográficas, aún más.
claro.
Entonces, bueno. Entonces te agradecemos de verdad de ponerte, eres muy, muy valiente porque es que
Gracias.
necesitas para hacer algo así y con todas las entrevistas que tienes y todo, siempre hablar de este tema, ¿no? Es difícil,
Hasta
entonces...
que me vas a hacer llorar de vuelta.
Ok, voy a parar. Un aplauso para Silvana. Thank you so much again. I'm applauding her strength and her courage to keep coming out and telling her story and in the process showing her true emotions and sometimes crying, which is the human thing to do, and it's what makes it more real and makes it more authentic in the sense that it makes you really understand what domestic violence is and what can be done to eliminate this kind of problem, hopefully in the future, and do as much as possible so that it doesn't happen again. But thanks again to everybody. Y bueno, estamos en contacto. Gracias otra vez, Silvana, un abrazo, un beso y estamos, bueno, te mando luego toda la traducción para que la veas también antes de. And Lucinda, thank you. Are you still here? Yes, Lucinda's still there. Thank you so much to you too. And then as soon as I revise all of the corrections my students made, I'm going to send you the manuscript, okay? And then we can go from there. And now we have ideas for the cover. Perfect. Gracias. Thank you, everybody. Adiós.
Gracias. Adiós.
Gracias.
Chao.
Steven, gracias a todos. Adiós. Bye bye.